Does Ovechkin passing Wayne Gretzky in goals punch his ticket to hockey's Mount Rushmore? Now, in general, when you do sports Mount Rushmores or Mount Rushmores of anything, it is a very biased question. So what I say and what you say, Horwat, is miles different than what somebody else will say. Probably somebody in DC will say something different. Probably somebody in Detroit will say something different. Somebody in Edmonton will say something different. But I think when you ask most hockey fans, there are two non-negotiables when building their hockey Mount Rushmore. And that is Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. Am I off base on that? Or do you think that those two are non-negotiables as I do?
I'm with you on that. And a lot of people would have a third non-negotiable. The Mount Rushmore conversation is just an impossible one to have. And then you kind of laid it out there. Everyone's going to have their own biases. Everyone's going to have their own opinions on things. I believe you'd be right with the Gretzky Lemieux non-negotiables. Like I said, a lot of people would say Gordie Howe as well. He's literally Mr. Hockey. But then after that, well, now you're only down to one spot. And even with just two, it's where the impossible nature of the conversation happens. Because before we even dive into it, you start asking the questions, do you have to put a goalie up there? What about a defenseman? Because at least for goalies, that's a completely different position and arguably nowadays the most important. So it gets tough. I mean, I think because of the span of history of hockey, you don't need to. But a lot of people would argue it. And this is just one of those conversations where now it is, do you take off-ice stuff into it? Do you take the longevity of a guy like Jaromir Jagr and different leagues into this? If you're building just an NHL one, I think you might take Jagr off, but it's still tough. And this is where the conversation can be had.
Now, you're measuring greatness no matter what. And that's what I think gets lost in the shuffle. People are like, oh, you think Gordie Howe sucks because you didn't put him on your Mount Rushmore. It's like, no, you're literally measuring the four greatest players, 4 to 8, I think is probably where a lot of people have 4 to 8 greatest players to ever play a sport that is over a century long.
Yeah.
But I think that the non-negotiables are Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. And I think that anybody who takes Lemieux out of that equation simply has not paid attention enough because of his greatness, considering the lack of playing that he actually did, right? A lot of these guys, Gretzky even, Gordie Howe, Jaromir Jagr, they have the benefit of longevity. Guys like Mario Lemieux, Bobby Orr did not. So I think that needs to get, especially to Mario, I think that needs to be added and thought about. And that's why I think he's a non-negotiable. The debate to me for spots 3 and 4 are between 4 players. And I don't put a goaltender in there. Gordie Howe is one of the players that I put in that debate. Bobby Orr is another player that I put in that debate. And then it's Ovi and Crosby, because it is hard to talk about one without talking about the other, because their careers have run parallel for the past 2 decades. And the greatness on either side is ridiculous. Now, here's the thing. This is where I say it's biased. Obviously, everybody's going to look behind me and see the Sidney Crosby thing and see the Evgeny Malkin bobblehead and see the Wiz bobblehead and know that, hey, I'm probably going to favor Sidney Crosby in this one. And I will say, I do put Crosby in over Ovechkin because he has more total points. He's up 63 right now. He has more championships. He has more medals, although, some of that is not Ovechkin's doing.
Correct.
But he's also done that in 139 less games when talking about the NHL accolades. If Sid had those games with his career point per game total, he'd have 1,855 points. He'd be 2 behind Messier for 3rd all-time right now. He'd be a shoo-in to pass Jagr, and he'd likely become the 2nd player ever to reach 2,000 points in a career. But the thing is, that's if you just measure it to his points per game right now, just his total career. If you look back, he's getting those games back in his prime. So he is probably way past a guy like Mark Messier, because in those seasons, he was going to run away with the scoring title. He was going to run away with the Hart Trophy. But he was cut down because of those neck injuries or whatever other injuries that he sustained early in his career that had us all wondering if he'd even play 20 seasons in the NHL. I think Crosby and the longevity that he's had, the stuff that he's had to kind of go through in his career, and the greatness that he has shown pretty much consistently up until this point and probably for the next few years following this, I put Crosby ahead of Ovechkin in this conversation. With that being said, I give Ovechkin the number 4 spot.
I like that.
And it's tough. It's tough to, because I'm knocking out Gordie Howe.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's literally Mr. Hockey. He is a guy that played 80 games at the age of 51 at the NHL level in 1980. But I look at Ovechkin and I say, if Crosby and Ovechkin are neck and neck, and I feel Crosby edges out Gordie Howe, how do I not put the greatest goal scorer of all time up there? Point blank. There's no conversation to be had. Alex Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer of all time. You said it earlier. He might have 2 cups after this year. Who knows? But again, it's splitting hairs. And maybe part of this is the fact that I never witnessed Gordie Howe with my own 2 eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he retired 16 years before I was born. But, that might be the bias there. And maybe I'm way off base. But I mean, it's Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby, Ovechkin. Do you have a different one? Am I an idiot for saying that, or do you agree?
No. Here's the other part of it too. Like, while there are no real correct answers to this, there's also no wrong answers for the most part. So I'm not going to say you're incorrect in your answer. I also do want to throw out, you said that Gordie Howe retired 16 years before you were born. Consider the fact that he started his career about 30 or 40 before that.
Yeah, he started in the 40s. So
stupid stuff. It is tough. It's an extremely tough conversation. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't begrudge anyone if they said after Lemieux Gretzky, it goes Howe Jágr. I'm just not going to do that because, again, you have the longevity for Jágr. Even outside the NHL, he's still playing. And same goes for Howe. I mean, that longevity was iconic for the time, and he's the one that set the standard for every player to follow, which, again, makes it tough to move the goalposts almost. For Ovechkin, it is tough to say the guy with the goals record shouldn't be on there. And by all means, he probably should be.
Mm-hmm.
And then it does just come down to splitting hairs. I think at this point, it's okay to not have Bobby Orr because we're talking about so much greatness. Like that's the way I kind of see it. I get it. And again, that he doesn't have he doesn't get the luxury of career length. Same goes for Mike Bossy.
Yeah.
Talk about guys having their careers cut short. Same goes for a lot of other greats. So who knows where Orr or Bossy's careers could have gone had they been okay their whole playing careers. But that's just kind of the unfortunate part. And I think where Lemieux gets the bump is because he was able to put up unreal numbers in such a short amount of time. And like I said at the very beginning of this, do you count off-ice stuff? Because Lemieux did come in and become an owner while still playing.
I don't count the off-ice stuff, but I still put him up there because I think anybody who watched him or anybody who you talk about or talk to that watched him would say there'd be arguments that he's the greatest player of all time.
Correct.
If he would have been healthy, then it would have been him over Gretzky. And honestly, again, I'm not going to overly speak on it because I didn't get to watch him in his prime with my own 2 eyes and get to experience the feeling of, hey, every third night you got to tune in because what's Lemieux going to do? Like, I have all of this in hindsight, but I look at Lemieux and I just think that him and Gretzky are hockey royalty. Though that's the top 2. And I think that I agree though. Like what you said about longevity, what I say about Lemieux has to apply to guys like Bobby Orr. Like, hey, yeah, he didn't have as much time, but the greatness that he showed in that time, and if he would have been able to prolong that out, to be able to stay healthy and stay in the league, he probably would have been right up there too. And honestly, my only fix to this, and this might be too nerdy of a reference to pull out in this situation, but screw Mount Rushmore. This is my infinity gauntlet of hockey, and it's these 6. It's Gretzky, Lemieux, Howe, or Ovechkin, Crosby. That ends the conversation for me because I love Jágr, but I don't put him in those classes. I think he's right there next to him though.
For sure.